March 7, 1945. The heights overlooking Remagen, Germany. Lieutenant Colonel Leonard Engemann lifted his binoculars, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from disbelief. Through the soft afternoon haze, the Rhine River shimmered below, and beyond it, something that defied every tactical assumption of the war. The Ludendorff Bridge, one of the last major crossings over the Rhine, was still standing. Incredibly, the Germans hadn't destroyed it. For months, Allied intelligence believed every bridge spanning the Rhine had been blown to slow the American advance. Yet, here it was, intact, unguarded, and wide open to opportunity. Below, the men of the U.S. 9th Armored Division advanced cautiously toward the riverbank. Dust from their jeeps and tanks drifted across the ruined streets of Remagen, a town battered by retreating German forces. Lieutenant Karl Timmermann, commanding Company A of the 27th Armored Infantry Battalion, could hardly believe what he was seeing. Before him stood the gateway into Germany's heartland, the Rhine itself, and a bridge that could change the course of the war. For German High Command, the Rhine had always been more than a river. It was the last great defensive barrier. Hitler called it the Wall of the West. Beyond it lay the industrial heart of Germany, the Ruhr, and the road to Berlin. Destroying every bridge was part of the desperate plan to delay the inevitable Allied onslaught. Yet, somehow, amidst chaos, the Ludendorff Bridge still stood, a 1,225-foot-long steel structure connecting Remagen to the village of Erpel on the east bank. As the Americans moved closer, they could see the bridge was rigged with explosives. Heavy charges hung from its trusses, wires running toward a command bunker on the far bank. The Germans had prepared it for demolition, but for reasons still unknown, it hadn't gone off. Time was everything. If the Germans succeeded in detonating the charges, the Allies would lose their only chance to cross the Rhine intact. Engemann knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime moment. He radioed headquarters. "Bridge at Remagen still stands." "Repeat, the bridge is still standing." At first, no one believed him. The report sounded impossible. But within minutes, higher command confirmed his sighting. Orders were clear. Take the bridge, no matter the cost. Lieutenant Timmermann gathered his men and outlined a plan under enemy fire. The Germans on the far bank had opened up with machine guns and small arms, determined to hold the crossing long enough to destroy it. Tanks from the 14th Tank Battalion rolled forward, firing at the stone towers of the bridge to suppress the defenders. Smoke filled the air. The roar of the Rhine echoed beneath the steel girders as the Americans prepared their assault. At 3 p.m., the first squads began to run across. Bullets ricocheted off the ironwork as engineers crawled under fire to cut demolition wires and remove explosives. Every second mattered. The Germans could detonate the charges remotely at any moment. Sergeant Alexander Drabik, leading the charge, sprinted ahead through smoke and gunfire. He was the first American to cross the Rhine, the first Allied soldier to set foot on the east bank of Germany's most formidable natural barrier. Halfway across, the bridge shuddered violently. A massive explosion erupted. One of the charges had finally detonated, blowing a hole through the decking. But the structure held. The German engineers' detonators had been sabotaged, the fuses faulty, or perhaps fate simply intervened. Whatever the reason, the bridge refused to fall. By nightfall, hundreds of American troops had crossed. Engineers worked frantically to secure the structure, cutting wires, tossing unexploded charges into the river, and patching damage with timber and steel plates. On the far bank, they stormed and captured the command bunker that had been meant to destroy them all. Inside, they found the detonator, smashed and useless. Back in Berlin, news of the disaster reached Hitler. His fury was beyond measure. He called it a betrayal of the highest order, an unforgivable failure. The officers responsible for the bridge's defense were arrested. General Major Richard von Bothmer and several engineers were court-martialed and executed for failing to destroy it in time. But by then it was too late. The Allies had established a bridgehead over the Rhine, the first since Napoleon. In the days that followed, the bridge at Remagen became a lifeline. Thousands of men, tanks, and vehicles poured across, expanding the bridgehead into a full-scale invasion. The Germans responded with everything they had: artillery barrages, fighter-bomber attacks, even experimental V-2 rockets. But the Americans held firm. Engineers built pontoon bridges alongside the Ludendorff to increase the flow of reinforcements. On March 17th, after 10 days of continuous strain and bombardment, the bridge finally gave way. With a loud, echoing groan, the Ludendorff collapsed into the Rhine, taking dozens of engineers with it. Yet its purpose had already been fulfilled. In those 10 days, over 25,000 Allied soldiers had crossed the river, and the fall of Nazi Germany had become inevitable. The capture of the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen was more than just a tactical success. It was a symbol of courage, of speed, and of chance seized in the chaos of war. Against impossible odds, American soldiers had turned a fleeting opportunity into a decisive victory. For many historians, it marked the moment when the end of the Third Reich truly began. When Lieutenant Timmermann later reflected on that day, he said it felt like history itself had paused, just long enough for a few men to cross a bridge that should have been gone. In that moment, the fate of Europe turned not on grand strategy, but on courage, instinct, and sheer luck. And as the stars rose over the Rhine that night, the echoes of gunfire gave way to something else: the sound of hope crossing into enemy territory.